Imagine a world where Rome never crumbled. No dark ages, no scattered kingdoms, no ruins, swallowed by time, just Rome, still running, still building, still telling everyone else what to do. The empire didn't fall, it just kept going. The roads still stretch to the sea. The laws still echo in marble halls. And you live right in the middle of it. Close your eyes. You're home now, in the empire that never died. You wake up to the sound of sandals on stone. Somewhere outside, someone's shouting about olives. Somewhere else, a fountain splashes into a marble basin. It's morning in the Roman Empire, and no, it never fell. The empire is still here. Still loud, still running exactly on time. The sun's already warming the rooftops. Pigeons coo from clay tiles. The streets below are busy like always. Merchants are setting up carts. Slaves are hauling jars of wine. Someone's sweeping dust off the steps of a temple, like the gods care about clean entrances. You live in an apartment above a bakery. It smells like hot bread and ash. Your building leans a little too far to the left, but that's normal. You step outside and nearly trip over a goat. Also normal. The city stretches in every direction: temples, markets, bathhouses, statues of emperors you stopped keeping track of. People in togas walk like they invented walking. People in tunics walk faster because they actually have things to do. You pass a lawyer arguing with himself and a poet writing on the back of a grocery list. The empire never collapsed, so everything is still all organized and complicated. There's still a senate, still laws, still taxes, lots of taxes, but also fountains with clean water and roads that don't fall apart every winter. It's a trade. Off you pass a public notice board nailed with news. A new governor in Britannia, a food shortage in Egypt, a new festival in honor of a god no one remembers. You pretend to read it. Everyone does. Then you head to the bathhouse because it's free and because everyone else is doing it. Inside, it's steamy and loud. Men argue about politics while scrubbing their elbows. A boy sells sponges on a stick. An old man sings off, "Key, you sit in the warm pool and try not to think about how much power this place still has, how far it stretches, how much of the world still reports to this city. It's a lot." Later you dry off, step into your sandals, and walk back into the city. You pass under a triumphal arch and try to remember what war it was built for. You can't. They win too many. By sunset, the sky is gold. Someone's lighting oil lamps. The baker downstairs is closing up. You lean on the windowsill and look out at the rooftops. Rome hums below you, endless and alive. The empire never fell. And here you are, still part of it, still surrounded by stone, law, and noise. Sleep well, Roman, tomorrow will be loud. The city doesn't wake up. It never went to sleep. Even now, before the sun has fully crested the rooftops, there's movement. A cart rattles down the alley, its wheels creaking with every uneven stone. A man is shouting about fresh figs. Somewhere nearby, a cat yowls like it owns the street. You stretch, roll your shoulders, and remember where you are, Rome. Still standing, still running, still yours. For better or worse, downstairs, the bakery is already warm. The oven's been going since long before dawn, and the baker's arms are dusted with flour all the way to the elbows. He doesn't greet you, but he nods. That's enough. You trade a coin for a small loaf of flatbread, still steaming. It burns your fingers, but you don't care. You tear it open, steam rising, and the smell is simple and good. There's no butter, no eggs. Those are for people with bigger kitchens and smaller families. You've got bread, a wedge of sharp cheese wrapped in cloth, and a handful of olives you bought 3 days ago. They're a little soft, but they'll do. You eat standing up, leaning against the stone wall outside. The bread is chewy. The cheese is strong enough to bite back. A neighbor walks by, chewing on a date and scratching his head. He waves without stopping. He's late for something, though he doesn't say what. Everyone's late for something in this city, even when they pretend they aren't. Somewhere across the street, someone's frying fish. The smell drifts through the air, oily and rich, and your stomach growls again even though you just ate. The fish is for lunch. Breakfast, if it can be called that, is fast and quiet. The workday starts early, and no one wants to argue on an empty stomach. A group of students passes you, carrying wax tablets and arguing about verbs. One of them sneezes and drops his stylus. He swears in Greek. You smile just a little and pop the last olive into your mouth. Around the corner, you hear the hum of the marketplace waking up. Coins clink, chickens squawk. Someone's already shouting about a deal that sounds like a lie. You think about going, but not yet. Not until the crowds thin a little. Not until the sun finishes climbing the sky. You head back upstairs, the last bite of bread still warm in your hand. Your neighbor is sitting on the stairs, rubbing sleep from her eyes and peeling a pear with a dull knife. She looks at your bread, then back at you. "Good batch today?" she asks. You nod. She nods back. That's all that needs to be said. In the Roman Empire, breakfast isn't a feast. It's survival, shared in quiet corners and eaten on the move. But it's enough to get you through the morning. And in a city this big, this loud, and this old, getting through the morning is already a victory. You brush crumbs off your tunic and watch as the street below fills up like a river after rain. The empire never fell, so the buildings never did either. They're still stacked close and tall, each one leaning on the next, like they're too tired to stand alone. You live in an insula, an apartment block for people who can't afford courtyards or servants, but still want a roof. It's cracked and crooked and smells like warm stone and boiled cabbage, but it's home. For now, if you were someone else, Samanukia or older or born into a name with more syllables, you'd be living in a domus, one of the real ones, low, wide, with marble steps and painted walls, a place where the floors are cold in summer, and the ceilings are high enough that your thoughts echo when you talk. You've passed them behind thick wooden doors, hidden behind walls just high enough to say "do not disturb." Inside, there are fountains and mosaics, and people who never have to wait in line for water. Your place doesn't have mosaics. It has stairs that creak and a window that doesn't quite close. You share a hallway with 3 other families and a smell that no one can trace. Someone boils lentils all the time. Someone else owns a rooster that doesn't understand how mornings are supposed to work. There's 1 sink, 2 buckets, and very little arguing, because no one has the energy for it. You all pretend not to hear each other, still it works. You have a corner for your things, a stool to sit on, and a mat to sleep. There's a shelf for food, and another for things that used to be useful. A cracked cup, a broken sandal, a comb missing 3 teeth. You meant to fix them. You always mean to fix them. But Rome moves fast, and you keep moving with it. In the morning, the insula breathes like a body. Doors open. Feet shuffle. A child drops a cup, and it rolls all the way down the stairs. A woman curses softly, and then laughs. Someone downstairs plays a flute badly. Someone upstairs starts an argument with a wall. You hear it all. You're part of it. Meanwhile, in the domus 2 streets over, the atrium is being swept. A servant waters, the plants in the peristyle. The master of the house yawns into his wine. His wife chooses her jewelry for the day. Their voices never rise. Their meals are quiet, their floors are clean. You think about that sometimes, not with jealousy, exactly, just curiosity. And when you close your door behind you and hear the click echo through the hallway, you're reminded that even stone cities are built on noise, closeness, and borrowed space. Welcome home. You're heading out for the day, and like always, you stop to think about what to wear. Not because you're fashionable. Rome doesn't care about fashion the way you think of it. It cares about status, and your clothes say more than you ever could. So you brush off yesterday's dust, rewrap your belt, and hope your tunic looks more reliable citizen than barely holding it together. Togas are everywhere, but not for you. You're not a senator. You're not a magistrate. You're not rich enough or important enough to spend half the morning folding 20 feet of wool into a fabric burrito. That's what the toga is. A heavy, uncomfortable, ceremonial reminder that someone's more powerful than you. White, stiff, expensive, and completely useless for doing anything practical. You wear a tunic, most people do, something simple belted at the waist. Off, white if you're clean, brown if you're not, it works. You pass a man adjusting his toga like it's trying to escape him. He's standing in front of a column arguing with himself about law codes and looking very official. His feet hurt, you can tell. The sandals they all wear are more for show than comfort. Thin leather, flat soles, straps that rub raw if you walk too far. But no one walks far in a toga. They glide. Or try to. Women have their own rules. Your neighbour wraps herself in a stola, layered and modest, with a pala shawl draped just right over one shoulder. She does it without looking, like tying a knot in a dream. Her hair's pinned up with bone combs and clever fingers. No mirrors, no fuss. Just years of habit. She nods to you as you pass. Not a smile, just recognition. That's as close as most people come to affection on a weekday morning. Children wear what they're given. Short tunics in the summer, hand. Me, downs in the winter. Half the kids in your block are barefoot, not because they like it, but because shoes are always last on the list. Rich kids wear small togas for ceremonies and pretend they understand what honor means. There's color in the streets too, reds, purples, and golds, but only on those who can afford to show off. Purple is especially bold. It is reserved for emperors, generals, or people with enough money to not care who they offend. The rest of you wear earth tones dyed just enough to hide the stains. You once saw a woman in full Tyrian purple walk through the forum, and watched 3 senators pretend not to turn their heads. Clothing in Rome isn't fast, and it isn't cheap. Everything is stitched by hand, woven slowly, mended constantly. You own 2 tunics, the one you're wearing, and the one drying on a string above your bed, but that's normal. No one expects more. So you head into the city in your worn sandals, tunic hanging loose, belt slightly frayed. You don't look rich, you don't look poor, you just look Roman, and that's enough to get you through the day. You step into the street and get bumped twice before you've gone 10 paces. A man brushing past with a sack of grain, a boy chasing a chicken, like it owes him money. There's no room here, not on the street, not in the forum, not in the walls you call home. Space is something you learn to share or lose completely. You gave up on solitude a long time ago. Rome doesn't care about personal bubbles. It barely believes in them. Back home, your walls are thin. You hear your neighbors before you see them. You know who argues, who sings in the bath, who drags their stool across the floor every evening like it's a ritual. You know their patterns better than their names. Sometimes you fall asleep to someone else's lullaby. Sometimes you wake up to someone else's cough. There's comfort in that, oddly. You're never really alone, which is good, mostly. The public baths are waiting. You don't go every day, but often enough. They're free and warm and full of people who don't mind seeing each other without clothes. You enter the apoditorium, the changing room, and find a bench that isn't wet. You strip down, wrap your towel, and try not to make eye contact with the senator complaining about grain prices. The baths aren't just for washing, they're for talking, planning, gossiping. News spreads faster here than in the Forum. In the Caldarium, steam rises thick and fast. You sit in a corner and let your skin adjust. A soldier beside you talks about Parthia. A merchant on your other side keeps sneezing. You try not to think about it. Someone rubs olive oil on their arms and scrapes it off with a strigil. You meant to buy one, you never do. The latrines are next door, lined up in a row like soldiers. No doors, no walls, just marble seats and awkward conversation. You nod politely to the man beside you. He nods back. That's enough. Someone's singing in the stall at the end. No one asks why. You leave the baths cleaner, maybe even a little lighter. Outside, the street is louder now. The midday sun bakes the stone, and people crowd into every sliver of shade. You pass a couple arguing under an awning, their voices sharp, public, and completely ignored. Everyone's used to it. There's no room for secrets. Not when the windows face each other and the courtyards echo everything. Even the temples are full. Not of worshippers, just people resting, thinking, waiting. The gods might hear your prayers, but so will half the block. Rome is vast, but it presses close. Elbows and noise and breath and life. You sleep beside your family. You eat shoulder to shoulder with strangers. You share air, water, silence. You dream in a room shared with 3 generations and a cracked wall that leaks every time it rains. And in the empire that never fell, privacy is the one thing you gave up without even realizing it. Because in Rome you don't live alone. You live together, whether you like it or not. After the baths, after the crowded latrines and the walk home, that took twice as long as it should have, you get ready for work. Not because you love it, not because it fulfills your soul, but because it keeps you fed, and in Rome, that's more than enough. You tie your sandals tighter, tuck your tunic out of the way, and head back into the noise. The empire never fell, which means the empire never stopped needing workers. Roads need patching, aqueducts need scrubbing, letters need copying, statues need polishing, temples need sweeping. There's always something, and someone always waiting to get paid for doing it. You're one of them, not a senator, not a merchant, not an orator standing on marble steps with an audience and a full stomach. You're one of the many. The hands that keep the city running while other people write poems about it. Today it's the market. You move you stack amphorae real careful, because one cracked jar of olive oil can cost more than you make in a week. You keep your head down and your back straight. You don't ask questions, you don't complain. The overseer likes that. He grunts when you pass, which means you're doing fine. Around you, the city is a blur of motion. A scribe at a corner stall dips his pen again and again, copying contracts for men who talk too fast. 2 women carry baskets of dyed cloth, trying not to trip on a crack in the stone. A team of builders mixes mortar with a rhythm that sounds almost musical. Everyone's working, even the ones pretending not to be. Especially them. Not far off, a group of slaves is clearing a drainage ditch. Their hands move faster, not out of pride, out of fear. Rome still uses slaves, like it uses roads, freely and without apology. You don't speak to them. Not because you think you're better, just because you've learned. It's easier that way. The line between freedom and labor is thinner than most people admit. By midday, your shoulders ache, your palms sting. You've been paid 2 coins and a promise for a 3rd if the job's finished before sunset. You nod. You'll make it happen. Lunch is bread dipped in vinegar and a few dried figs. You sit on a step in the shade, feet stretched out, and watch as the world keeps moving. No one's resting. Not really. Rome runs on work. on movement, on people like you who wake up, wash off the dust, and start again. You think about quitting sometimes, about moving to the countryside, raising goats, living quiet. But quiet doesn't pay. So you finish your figs, you stand up, you get back to it. Because in the empire that never fell, everyone works. The poor work to eat, the rich work to stay rich, and the rest of you, you work because that's what Rome expects. And Rome always gets what it wants. You finish the day with sore arms, 3 coins, and 1 blister that wasn't there this morning. The sun is low, the air heavy, and the market is quieter now, but not quiet. Rome is never quiet. You sit on a stone bench and pull the coins from your pouch. 2 bronze, 1 silver. You rub them between your fingers as if the metal might suddenly feel more valuable if you hold it long enough. It doesn't, but at least they're real. The coins tell you everything you need to know, whose face is on them, which emperor is pretending he still controls the mint, what year it's supposed to be. But dates don't mean much when half the shops set their own prices and the other half just make them up. You're supposed to be living in a stable empire, but sometimes it feels like every corner of the city has its own idea of what a denarius is worth. The money is official, the economy not so much. You walk past a bakery where the bread costs 1 coin today, 2 yesterday, and 1.5 if you know the baker's cousin. A wine cellar offers a discount for friends of the Legion, whatever that means. A cloth merchant leans over and whispers that his prices are fixed by decree, then immediately tells you he can make a deal. There are laws, but no one really reads them. They're written on stone tablets in the forum, weathered and ignored, more decoration than guidance. There are taxes too, of course. Always taxes. Some are collected by the state, some by the province, some by a man with a scroll and a ring who insists he's legitimate because he has a wax seal. You pay what you can and hope it's enough, and if it's not, you pay again, with more coins, or more favors, or more silence. Rome runs on money, but it runs just as well on bribery. You've seen senators walk out of temples with their hands full and their consciences light. You've seen magistrates nod politely to men who were caught stealing, then quietly let them go when no one's watching. You've seen favors passed in amphorae, in jewelry boxes, in wineskins. You've seen guards look the other way, then wait to be thanked for it, but none of it surprises you anymore. That's the thing. The empire never fell, but it sagged, it stretched, it adapted. People found cracks and built homes inside them. Some climb ladders, some hold the ladder steady, some just hope it doesn't fall on them. You tuck your coins away and start walking again. Tomorrow you'll trade them for food, or rent, or maybe a new pair of sandals if the blister gets worse. You won't save them. You can't not here, because in the Roman Empire the economy works, just not for everyone. And if you want to keep eating, you learn how to play the game, or at least how to not get caught losing it. You wake the next morning with the same 3 coins in your pouch, and the sound of shouting already echoing through the alley, not angry shouting, cheering. Loud, messy, excited. The kind of noise that can only mean one thing. Games somewhere across the city, in a stone bowl big enough to swallow a whole neighborhood. Today's entertainment is already getting started. You don't have a ticket, you don't need one. If you stand in the right place, you can still hear the crowd roar. The Colosseum, everyone calls it that now, even though it was once just the Flavian amphitheater, is never empty. Not really. Even when the seats are clear, the place feels alive. It hums today, it's packed. Senators in the best seats, fanning themselves and pretending not to sweat. Merchants on the middle levels passing food and bets. And up top, where you'd be if you made it inside. The rest. The workers, the slaves, the unlucky. Everyone else. No cushions, no shade. Just noise and dust and blood. You're not there yet, though. You're standing outside the walls near a vendor selling figs and fried cheese on sticks. You buy one. You don't ask what kind of cheese, you just eat. The crowd inside roars again. You hear the gates open. Someone is fighting something. This isn't theatre. This isn't soft music and poetry. This is Rome's favorite kind of spectacle. Loud, brutal, and unapologetically final. Gladiators, beasts. Executions dressed up as shows. The empire never fell. So the games never stopped. They just got bigger. More organized, more funded. Inside, a man with a sword is circling another man with a net. Somewhere an animal snarls. Sometimes it's a lion, sometimes a bear. Once you heard they brought in a giraffe just to make it wave to the crowd before dragging it off again. No one even remembers why. The games are free, technically. Paid for by politicians trying to win favor. Bread and circuses, that's the rule. Feed the people, distract them, keep them watching the arena instead of the Senate. It works. It always works. For a few hours, no one's thinking about taxes or grain shortages or a broken aqueduct. They're too busy watching someone fight for their life while an entire city cheers. You've never been inside the ring, but you know someone who has. A butcher's nephew, quiet and quick, he fought twice, won both. They said he got a bonus and a better room after that, but he hasn't been seen since. Sometimes surviving the arena is just the start of a longer story no one tells. You finish your snack. The sun is high now, and the crowd keeps cheering. You start walking again down streets half asleep from wine and dust. Somewhere behind you another gate opens, another roar, another fight. Rome celebrates. And the empire continues, loud and full of teeth. Because in the empire that never fell, entertainment isn't a break from life. It's just life, louder, bloodier, and dressed for a crowd. You're still thinking about the cheers from the arena when you pass by a group of boys gathered in the shadow of a statue. They're not shouting. They're reciting carefully, rhythmically, like it matters. Which it does, because in Rome, if you can't speak well, you might as well not speak at all. Education, like most things in the empire, isn't equal. If you're poor, you learn at home, if at all. Maybe a neighbor teaches you your letters. Maybe you learn to count by helping your mother sell vegetables at the market. You memorize what matters, prices, prayers, your place in the line. But if you're lucky, if your family has a few coins to spare, you go to a ludus, a small school, usually just a corner of someone's house, cleared out and filled with benches, no chalkboards, no desks, just wax tablets, styluses, and sore fingers. The teacher is called a ludi magister, though the kids call him other things when he's not listening. He's underpaid, overworked, and endlessly tired of repeating the alphabet. You sit with the other children, tunics itchy, feet cold, trying not to yawn. First comes reading, then writing, then math. You copy letters over and over until the grooves on your tablet blur together. Discipline is sharp and close. A wrong answer earns a slap. Talking out of turn earns worse. You learn quickly, not because it is fun, but because it hurts less that way. And then for the truly fortunate, or the ambitious, you graduate to the next level. Grammaticus here. It's all about poetry, history, and proper Latin. You read Virgil until the verses live in your bones. You analyze speeches from long-dead orators. You learn that language has weight, and every word is a choice. It is not just education anymore. It is strategy, but the real prize is rhetoric. Rhetor. This is where boys become men, at least in the eyes of those who can afford to pretend that's all it takes. You learn to speak, to stand up in front of a room full of other Romans and make them listen, make them believe, make them cheer. It is not about truth. It is about sound, cadence, confidence. A good argument can win a trial. A great one can win. You pass a group rehearsing in the open square. One boy stands on a step, hands raised like he's sculpting the air. He's arguing about justice or maybe taxes. It's hard to tell. The others nod or jeer, depending on how much they like him. A teacher watches, arms crossed, head shaking. You keep walking. You didn't study rhetoric. You studied how to carry things without dropping them, how to haggle down the price of grain, how to read just enough to not get cheated. But you still listen, because in the empire that never fell, words matter, not as decorations, but as tools or weapons, or tickets to a better roof, a better job, a better seat in the shade. And for the Romans, that's the real arena. No blood, just voices, no sword, just a sentence, perfectly timed. By the time the sun sinks low enough to cast the buildings in long shadows, you're thinking about dinner. Not because you're hungry, though you are, but because dinner in Rome is never just about food. It's a performance, a ritual, a message. How you eat, where you eat, and with whom you eat says more than most speeches, even the ones written in perfect Latin. You head home with a loaf under one arm and a bag of lentils slung over your shoulder. Someone's already cooking nearby, garlic, herbs, something frying in oil. You breathe it in and try not to think about how long it's been since you had meat. You'll soak the lentils overnight, maybe add onions if you have any left. It won't be fancy, but it'll be enough. Not far from your street, behind a set of tall bronze doors, someone else's dinner is already well underway. A domus, big, private, candlelit. The kind of place with slaves and silverware. Inside, guests are reclining on cushioned couches, picking olives off gold plates, and pretending not to notice how much wine they've had. A slave moves through the room, pouring watered, down Falernian while someone else reads a poem out loud, slowly like it matters. They'll start with eggs or maybe shellfish, dipped in sauces with names you can't pronounce, then bread, fresh, still warm, served in slices so perfect they look carved. After that, roast meat, honeyed fruit, stuffed dormice, real dormice, not a joke. Someone once told you they taste like greasy almonds, but you've never had the chance to find out. The rich eat late and long, hours pass between courses. It's not just about filling bellies, it's about showing off who's invited, who isn't, who sits closest to the host, who gets the best cut of lamb. You've heard stories of men rising in politics just by eating the right fig in the right house at the right time. That's Rome. Sometimes all it takes is the right bite. You sit on the floor and dip bread into the lentils. It's not a feast, it's not poetry, but it's good. Filling, familiar, you eat slowly. Not because you want to savor it, but because you don't know how long it'll need to last. Outside, laughter drifts down from a balcony. A toast is made somewhere in the dark. Someone claps, someone sings. The rich finish their final course. You scrape your bowl clean, because in the empire that never fell, food is more than survival. It's currency, it's hierarchy, it's theatre, and everyone plays a part, even if your part comes without a table, after dinner with your belly just full enough and the street still warm from the day. You take a walk. Not far, just enough to let the food settle and the thoughts stretch. You pass the same temples you always do, columns rising into the night sky, stone gods watching with blank eyes. You nod toward them out of habit. That's how most people do it now, not because they're feeling especially holy, but because it's safer to be respectful just in case. The gods are everywhere here, painted on walls, carved into fountains, etched into coins you spent earlier today. Jupiter, Mars, Minerva, Venus, big names, old names, always watching. You grew up hearing stories about them, how they ruled the world, how they threw lightning or punished pride. But the stories don't scare you like they used to. They feel more like traditions than threats. Something between folklore and family routines. Still you stop at a shrine on the corner and toss in a small offering, a fig, half of one. Not because you think Mercury's going to personally help your luck tomorrow, but because you've been doing it since you were a child, and stopping now feels like inviting trouble. You whisper a quick prayer, short and vague, something about protection, or maybe patience. You're not alone. A woman passes behind you and leaves a flower for Juno. A boy lights a bit of oil and mutters something to Apollo about a sick goat. Nobody lingers. It's not about ceremony. It's about rhythm, repetition. Keep the gods happy. Or at least not angry. Of course there's the emperor too. He has his own temples, his own statues, his own official title that includes words like divine and eternal. People bow their heads when his name is spoken, whether they mean it or not. You've seen altars dedicated just to him. Burnt incense, clean stones, fresh wreaths. You've also seen people roll their eyes the second they turn away. That's Rome. Belief is flexible. Just don't let anyone catch you saying that out loud. And there are other gods now too. Quiet ones, imported. Eastern cults with strange names and secret rituals. Isis from Egypt. Mithras from the shadows. Even that one about a single god, just one, invisible, jealous, and surprisingly popular in certain corners of the city. Some say it's growing, some say it's dangerous, others say it'll vanish like all the rest. You walk back through the dark, the night cooler now. The temple's quiet. Somewhere, someone's chanting. Somewhere else, someone's sleeping soundly under a painted ceiling of stars and myths. You climb your stairs and light a small lamp, no altar, just a flicker. You let it burn while you wash your hands. Because in the empire that never fell, faith is complicated. Gods come and go, emperors rise and glow. And you still whisper into the dark, hoping someone or something is listening, even if it's just yourself. You wake up the next morning with the gods still lingering somewhere behind your eyes. Maybe it was the fig offering, maybe it was the chanting, maybe it was just another dream that felt like a warning you'll never understand. But none of that matters now, because outside the street is already, and you have places to be. Rome's roads are famous. Everyone says so, paved in stone, straight as an arrow, older than most of the buildings sitting on top of them. Some of these roads stretch all the way to the sea. Some go farther, through mountains, across rivers, into cities with names you'll never pronounce. There are maps, etched in marble, showing how the empire fits together like a giant stone spiderweb. And right in the middle, always, is Rome. The roads are built to last. You can feel it under your sandals, the slap of leather against something permanent. Each slab fitted like a puzzle, each one angled to drain rainwater away. They're brilliant, they're sturdy, they're beautiful. They're also completely jammed. You step outside and almost get run over by a mule cart stacked with amphorae. The driver curses in 3 languages, none of them polite. Behind him, a line of wagons clatters past, wheels bouncing, oxen snorting. A senator's litter blocks one whole side of the road, carried by 6 sweating men who look like they'd rather be anywhere else. A soldier yells at a vendor for blocking the corner with a fig stall. The vendor yells back louder. There are rules. Of course there are. Certain streets are closed to carts during the day. Certain paths are reserved for processions, for officials, for sacred nonsense. But no one listens unless there's a fine, and even then it depends on who's collecting it. You squeeze between a pack of goats and a man selling roasted chestnuts. A boy with a scroll under his arm sprints past you, nearly trips, doesn't stop. You try not to breathe in too much dust, or smoke, or whatever that smell is you don't ask. And yet somehow it works slowly, inefficiently, loudly. But it works. The roads never crack, never flood, never vanish in winter. You've heard of roads in the far provinces that have been around for over 200 years and still carry armies like it's nothing. Rome doesn't make things pretty, it makes them permanent. You finally reach your destination, late but not too late. No one complains, everyone else is late too. That's the thing about Roman traffic, it affects everyone equally. Rich, poor, toga, tunic, you all get stuck behind the same stubborn mule. You wipe the sweat from your forehead, dust off your sleeves, and look back at the road. It stretches into the distance, disappearing between rows of stone buildings and tangled lives, still strong, still paved, still there, because in the empire that never fell, you can always count on the road beneath your feet, just not the speed of what's on top of it. The road behind you is quiet now, just the distant clatter of hooves and shouting fading into morning. But even with your sandals finally still, the empire itself never stops moving. That's the trick. Rome looks solid, marble columns, bronze statues, laws, etched in stone. But under the surface, everything is shifting, always quietly, sometimes not so quietly. You feel it in little things. A neighbor whispering that grain prices are up again, a coin with a new emperor's face showing up in your pay again, a senator accused of bribery. Again, it's nothing new. It's always happening. And yet it never stops feeling a little like the ground under your feet isn't quite as firm as the roads promise. The thing about an empire this big, this old, is that it doesn't fall all at once. It wobbles, sways, patches itself up with plaster and speeches. You hear about revolts in the provinces, nothing close, but close enough to make the man at the bathhouse mutter that someone should do something. You nod. So does everyone else. Then you both move on to complaining about the water pressure. In the Senate, they're still talking. They always are. About taxes, about borders, about temples that need repairs and governors who need replacing. You walk past the forum one afternoon and hear a senator shout that the empire is crumbling. He's standing on clean marble steps under a clean blue sky. The crowd claps anyway. People like being told their fears are valid, even if nothing comes of it. The emperor, whoever it is this week, gives speeches too, long ones, about stability, about glory, about how Rome will stand forever. Most people believe him, or pretend to. You do too when it's convenient. It's easier than the alternative. Easier than admitting that even something as big as Rome can crack from the inside. You hear rumors, everyone does. Armies marching too slowly, gold disappearing too quickly, new taxes for old problems, old men talking about the good years like they were a dream. Even the gods feel a little more distant now. You light your offerings and wonder if they're still listening, or if they've moved on. But the city still runs. Bread still bakes. Children still play in the alleys. A man with a broken sandal still shouts at the sky like it personally wronged him. Life goes on. One uneven step at a time. Because Rome, somehow, always finds a way to keep standing, even when it looks like it shouldn't. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's fear, maybe it's just habit. You don't know. You just know the marble feels a little colder these days. The cracks show a little more. And still, every morning you wake up to a city that insists it's eternal. The empire never fell, not yet. But if you listen closely, you can hear the strain, like a statue that's been standing too long, glorious, cracked, still watching. The empire might be wobbling, but people still fall in love, even in cracked cities, even under crumbling statues, even with taxes rising and the future slipping through your fingers like sand. You wake up to uncertainty, but sometimes someone still smiles at you from across the market stall, and that's enough to forget, at least for a moment, that the empire is quietly unraveling. Love in Rome isn't gentle. There's no soft music or handwritten letters tied with ribbon. It's fast, messy, loud. You catch feelings the way you catch a cold, by standing too close for too long. It starts with a look, a brush of fingers as you both reach for the same fig, maybe a shared complaint about the heat or the price of barley. And just like that, you are in it. Two people stuck in a city of millions, suddenly looking only at each other. You don't date, not really. There's no word for it that means what you think it does. You meet, you talk, you walk through the streets like you're not sweating through your tunic. If you're lucky, you share a cup of watered wine in a courtyard and pretend not to notice the neighbor eavesdropping from the steps. Privacy, as always, is optional. Marriage is another matter. It's a contract. A transaction. Families talk. Names are compared. Dowries discussed. You marry who you're supposed to and hope they aren't terrible. Or you don't marry at all and live with someone quietly long enough that the law starts calling it marriage anyway. Love comes later or not. No one really explains that part. Still, people find ways. You've seen a soldier buy a flower from a street vendor and give it to the same girl every week, even though she always rolls her eyes. You've watched a baker slip an extra piece of bread to the boy who walks her sister home. You once passed a couple kissing behind the columns of a closed temple, laughing like they invented the idea. And sometimes it ends just as fast. He gets conscripted. She moves to another district. A family disagrees. A letter gets lost. A promise fades. Love is a luxury here, like wine that hasn't been watered down or figs in the off-season. But that doesn't stop people from chasing it. Back home, you light your lamp and sit near the window. Across the alley, someone sings softly, a girl's voice. Sweet and off, key. You don't know who it's for. Maybe no one. Maybe everyone. It doesn't matter, because even in a world where the streets are crowded, the future uncertain, and the walls always seem to be closing in, someone is still falling in love tonight. Right now, quietly, fiercely, stupidly, and that, somehow, is what keeps the city human. The empire hasn't fallen. Not yet. And as long as people still risk their hearts between the cracks, maybe it never truly will. Love makes things feel lighter. It gives the city a glow, even if it's just for a night. But when the sun rises again, and the streets fill back up with shouting merchants and dust and borrowed time, the weight returns. Not just the weight of work or worry, but the weight of the whole thing. The structure, the system, the illusion. Because no matter how many people smile across market stalls, Rome is still Rome. And Rome hasn't been a republic for a very, very long time. That doesn't stop anyone from pretending. You pass the Forum, where the Senate still gathers. Old men in whiter than white togas stand in the shade of columns, arguing with theatrical hand gestures and half-listened. To speeches they talk about grain laws, building permits, roads that need fixing, and taxes that nobody wants to pay. Their voices rise, sharp and dramatic, echoing off marble, like something important is happening. And maybe it is. But no one believes they're really in charge. The emperor is in charge. Everyone knows it, everyone knows it. But we don't say it out loud, not directly, not in a way that could be quoted. The senators speak with just enough confidence to feel dignified, and just enough caution to keep their estates. It's a balance, a performance. Statues of past leaders stare down at you from every direction. Some of them were good. Some of them were disasters. One or two might have even meant well. Doesn't matter now. They've all been carved in stone, given flowing robes and thoughtful brows. That's how you make history behave. You give it a beard and a pedestal, and hope no one remembers the screaming. You lean on a railing and watch the scene play out. A vote is called, A few scribes scurry around like panicked ants. A group of senators exit early, already bored. This is what democracy looks like when it's been boiled down to the leftovers. Decorative, impressive, slightly hollow. Elsewhere in the city, the real decisions are being made behind closed doors, in villas, in military camps, in letters sealed with wax and passed by men who don't make eye contact. That's where power lives now. It doesn't wear a laurel wreath. It wears a neutral expression and gives commands without raising its voice. Still the Republic lingers, in name, in tradition, in speeches whispered to crowds who need to believe their voices still count. You've heard people talk about the old days when votes mattered and leaders feared the people. You've also heard that those days were never as golden as they sound. You push off the railing and keep walking. The sun is high, the stones hot beneath your sandals. You pass a wall where someone scratched SPQR into the plaster. The Senate and the people of Rome. You smile just a little. Because in the empire that never fell, the Republic didn't return, but it left behind a ghost, and we still salute it, out of habit, out of hope, or maybe just to keep the lie polite. You leave the forum behind, its white marble still gleaming like it means something. The senators are still talking, the statues are still watching, but your feet take you past all that, through narrower streets and down toward the edge of the city, where news from the outside world trickles in, carried on tired voices and dusty boots. The empire is big, too big maybe. It stretches from cold forests in the north to deserts that shimmer in the heat. It touches rivers with names that don't quite fit in Latin. It owns coasts it can barely pronounce. And every corner of it thinks it should matter more than it does. You hear it in the rumours, a new revolt in Britannia. Another governor gone missing in Mauritania. Something about unpaid legions in the East building camps, just a little too far from where they're supposed to be. None of it feels real, not yet. But it's there, a hum underneath everything else, like a stone starting to crack before anyone sees the line. The provinces are part of Rome, officially on paper. But you've met people from them, traders, soldiers, servants. They speak Latin with strange accents and wear tunics dyed with plants you don't have here. They call the emperor ours with a smile that doesn't quite reach their eyes. They pay their taxes mostly. They send grain and spices and wool and complaints. And Rome takes it all because Rome always does. But you wonder sometimes, quietly, how long that will last. You've heard about cities out there just as grand, just as proud, just as old. Cities with their own gods and their own gods' opinions. You've seen maps with too many borders, too many lines held in place by tired legions and hopeful scribes. At the port, a ship unloads cargo from the east. Ivory, letters sealed with unfamiliar symbols. A sailor swears that in the city of Antioch, people curse the emperor by name. Out loud. You raise your eyebrows. He shrugs. They're far enough away, he says. They can get away with it. Closer to home, a group of soldiers marches past. Not local, not Roman by birth. Their faces are hard and unreadable, their shields clean. Their orders come from people whose names you'll never know. One of them looks at you as they pass. You look away. Back in your insula, someone's hanging laundry between two buildings. A tunic flaps like a banner in the breeze below. Two boys play at being generals, shouting commands in broken Latin. One of them falls. They both laugh, because for now Rome still holds, the roads still stretch, the taxes still reach. But the provinces are whispering, and one day someone will listen. The empire never fell, not yet, but it forgot how far its borders really go. And sometimes, when empires forget their edges, the edges start to push back quietly, then louder, Then all at once, the whispers from the provinces stay with you longer than they should, long after the ships have emptied their cargo and the soldiers have vanished into side streets. You don't hear anything official, of course. No one does. But the silence feels too thick, too practiced, like the kind of quiet that only happens when someone important has something to hide. And when you think of power in Rome, you don't think of the Senate. You don't even think of the emperor. You think of the army, steel, discipline, loyalty, but only to a point. The legions are everywhere. You see them come and go, marching in columns, boots thudding in time, faces like stone. They keep the empire glued together, roads, forts, borders. Rebellions quiet down when the eagles appear, or at least they used to. You remember when you were younger, watching a cohort pass through the city. You stared at them like they were gods. Bronze helmets shining, shields high, standards held steady like the wind knew better than to blow. You didn't notice then how tired they looked, how many were missing teeth, how the horses were thinner than they should have been. These days you notice. Rome still pays its army, usually, sometimes in coin, sometimes in promises, sometimes in land far from home, which sounds like a reward, but feels more like a soft exile. More than once, a legion has installed a new emperor with the edge of a blade. Everyone knows it. No one says it. Not out loud. The soldiers don't talk much when they're here, but when they do, it's never about glory. It's about food, about waiting, about marching for weeks without orders, about commanders who play politics instead of giving commands. They joke in low voices that if Rome forgets to feed them again, maybe they'll march the other way next time. They laugh, then they don't. You pass a shrine later in the day, just as a centurion leaves an offering. He kneels, quiet and still, then stands and adjusts his belt like he's heading back into a fight. But there's no battle today, no border war, just drills, paperwork. Boredom, soldiers don't like boredom. It gives them time to think. Back at home, your neighbor's son is carving a wooden sword. He swings it at shadows and names them after distant tribes he's never seen. His sister rolls her eyes and tells him the real world doesn't care about battles, but he keeps swinging just in case. The empire never fell, not yet, but the legions are tired, and if the wrong man gives the right order, or no order at all, they might stop marching or march the wrong direction. And when an army stands still long enough, it stops being Rome's, it becomes its own. That's the part no one likes to talk about, but everyone's thinking it. Even you, especially now. The legions drift farther from the city, from orders, from patience. And you stay. You wake up, like always, to the sound of carts and shouting, sandals on stone. You stretch your back, it cracks, not loudly. Just enough to remind you that time keeps moving, even when Rome pretends not to. You're older now, not old, but old enough that you grunt when you bend down and plan your steps before you take them. Your tunic fits looser. The stairs up to your apartment feel steeper than they used to. You stop halfway sometimes just to look out at the view. Though the view hasn't changed in 20 years, the city hasn't changed either. At least not in the ways people talk about. Sure, the walls have crept outward, swallowing more land. There are more temples, more taxes. The emperors come and go, some with parades, some with silence. But the noise stays the same. So do the smells. So do the cracks in the road near the fountain. You find comfort in the routine. Bread in the morning, water from the same cistern, the same market stalls, the same sun on the same roofs, at the same time each afternoon. That's the thing about Rome. It doesn't need you to believe in it. It just needs you to keep living inside it, and you do. You pass young men debating outside a basilica. They speak fast, loud, confident, like the empire is new and theirs to shape. You smile a little, not unkindly. You used to talk like that too. You still remember the speeches, the names of rivers you've never seen, the feel of a coin when it was worth something. Sometimes you sit on a bench near the baths and watch the crowd go by. A senator's litter, a soldier on leave, a girl chasing a pigeon with a stick. You wonder where they'll all end up, if they'll stay, if they'll leave, if they'll age in place like you have, wrapped in stone and routine, and just enough silence to feel like rest. At night you light a small lamp and set it by the window. You sit beside it, not waiting, just being. The marble glows faintly under the moonlight. Everything looks peaceful from a distance, eternal, even you know better. But you let the thoughts settle in anyway. The empire never fell, not for you. It aged, it shifted. It cracked in places but held, and so did you. Tomorrow will come with footsteps and dust and bread. That's never quite warm enough. But for now, you breathe easy in your city. On your street, beneath your ceiling, you are Roman. And Rome, whatever shape it's in, still answers when you say its name. It's not perfect, but it's still here, and so are you. And so, in a world where the Roman Empire never fell, life continued, not as a golden dream, but as something quieter, heavier, more familiar. The roads stayed strong, the laws stayed written. The people like you learned to live within the rhythm of something vast and ancient, not glorious, not fair, but real. Empires don't need to collapse to change. They just keep going, layered in routine, cracked with age, still breathing. So sleep now beneath the shadow of marble and memory. The fires are low, the streets are still. Rome endures, and you, citizen, are part of its forever.